John Lusk here of Lusk Archery Adventures. Series testing, successful hunting. Today I'm going to be testing one of my favorite broadheads. It's a head that I've used to kill more animals than probably any other broadhead in my life so far, because for a few years I used it exclusively, and that is the QAD Exodus. I've tested it over and over. I lost count at 60 animals all over the planet with it. Every time I test it, every time I've used it in the field, it has just impressed me and reminded me how good it is. I've been so impressed with Exodus over the years that a few years ago, I asked them if they would give me a discount code, and they did. So if you use Lusk10, Lusk10 on any of their broadheads on their website, you get a 10% discount. And hey, every little bit helps. So I'm eager to see how it holds up to my 2026 broadhead test process. A lot of times when I have a new process, I go back with some of the broadheads that have really tested well and see how they do with my new test regimen. And so that's what I'm going to be doing today with the 125 grain swept model. And for this test, I'm going to be using this 2026 process. So please check out the video that I posted earlier this year called 2026 Broadhead Test Process, and it'll walk you through all the different tests I do and why I do them and how I do them and so forth. And I'm going to be using my Elite Eon Compound bow for most of the shooting. For some of the flight testing, I'm going to be using my Ravin LR XBow at 450 feet per second. But I do the flight testing with both the compound and the crossbow, so it has a combined score like that. And I'm going to be using Bishop Archery arrows for most of the testing as well. Let's zoom on in here, go through some of the design features and specifications, and then put this Exodus to the test. Here's a good look at this broadhead. And man, I remember when this first came out, just thinking how wicked cool it looks. And man, it still looks wicked cool today. Okay, I love the looks of this thing. Let's start with the materials. First of all, it's all steel, 100% steel. It's got steel ferrule, steel tip, all one piece there. And then it's got steel blades. In terms of the dimensions, the blades are 0.040 inches thick, which is thicker than most replaceable blade broadheads on the market. The cutting diameter is 1¼ inches, which is significant because the vast majority of 3-blade broadheads are like 1 inch or 1 1/8 inches. And so this is a bit wider cut than most. A few things are important to note about the design. First of all, is it's got a super short ferrule, and that does a couple things. First, it makes it really durable. You're not going to get a break. It'd be really hard to break that ferrule at the stem, which happens in some longer stemmed broadheads. And then it also keeps the overall length of the arrow about the same as that of a field point. So that will keep the dynamic spine almost identical to that of your field point if your field point is that long. The distance between the end of the arrow and the tip of the broadhead is sub 1 inch. It's like 0.83 inches, I believe. And they can do that because of this blade over shaft design. The blades extend over the end of the arrow shaft there. Now you notice that they cut back at an angle, and that makes them considered barbed. So there's several states. Last I checked, there's like 5 or 6 states that have a law, a regulation against barbed broadheads. Though really there's no logical reason for it, but they have a law against it, so it's considered illegal in those states. But they make a full model, as they call it, Exodus calls it, where the blades approach at a 90-degree angle almost all the way to the arrow shaft, and those are not considered barbed. Another thing it's important to note is that the tip is basically a cut-on contact tip. I mean, it's really sharp and really pointy. And you notice that it lines up with the blades, so you get one consistent cut from the very tip through the blades. And you notice that the angle is continual. From here all the way through the blades, it's a continual angle. In a lot of different 3-blade replaceable blade broadheads, there'll be like the tip will approach like this, and then there'll be a sharp increase in the angle of the blades, and that puts a lot of pressure at that point in the blades, and that's where sometimes they break or they dislodge from the ferrule, and fall apart. But the Exodus has done a really good job having that line, that angle be consistent. And I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to take it off for a second. If you look at it from this angle, you can see how sleek it is, that this tip aligns with the blades, and that's just going to help it to penetrate really well. There's not much else going on that's going to impede the penetration. So for such a large cut, relatively speaking, you still typically get excellent penetration with the Exodus. Now, the cost of these come out at $16.67 per broadhead in a 3-pack, but on their website, you can use my discount code LUSK10 and save 10%, which is really good. Usually, big name broadheads like this that sell through a lot of manufacturers don't give me a discount code, but if you get it on their website, you can use my discount code and save 10%. Man, this head is always tested exceptionally well, one of the very best, and I look forward to seeing how it holds up to my 2026 regimen. At 45 yards with the Elite Eon, it just clipped the bullseye. And again, at 45 yards with the Ravin crossbow, it also clipped the bullseye, which is a 2-inch bullseye, by the way. And the noise in flight was rated as a 9.1 on a 10-point scale, whereas a field point gets a 10 on a 10-point scale. It took 158 grams of force to cut through the wire, which is a 10 on a 10-point scale, plus a proportional bonus of 0.42 for being under the threshold of 200. It penetrated 8 3/4 inches. I know it doesn't look like that the way the tape lines up with the lens and so forth, but that is the measurement, 8 3/4 inches. And it took an additional 79 grams of force to cut through the wire, which is an 8.42 on a 10-point scale. It penetrated through 69 layers, which is really impressive given its cut size. The head's in excellent shape after the 3 shots through the MDF. And it's still in excellent shape after the 2 shots through the 22 gauge sheet of steel, and it also makes really nice triangular cutout holes. Here it is after all the durability testing, and man, it held together really well. Through the MDF was perfect, through the steel plate was perfect, and then into the cinder block, you can see the tip got a little bit of a hook to it, though it still spins well. A little bit of a chunk out there, a little bit of a nick there and there, very minor damage, very impressive durability. So what'd you think? Man, again, it didn't disappoint, right? I mean, this broadhead is it's just hard to beat. It doesn't have a weakness, really. It flies well. It's super sharp, has good edge retention, and it's very durable, and it penetrates well, has a decent cut size. It's just a winner of a broadhead for pretty much any animal you might want to pursue. And it got a really high score, once again, even in my 2026 test process. But hey, you check out the score sheet and see how it performed in the areas that matter to you the most, and see if it might be a good fit for you. And stay tuned for a summary of the score sheet. You can find all the details of the score sheet in the video description, as well as a link to an Excel spreadsheet of all the heads that I've tested for the last several years and all the scores in all the different areas. But stay tuned for a summary of that score sheet and the combined overall score, as well as the corresponding LUSK grade. And also stay tuned for a list of all the discount codes that I can offer, like LUSK10 for Exodus will save 10%, but there's many others on this slide I'm going to put up. It lists all the different discount codes that I have just to help you save some money in the field. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you next time.